Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of On the Bench from Bengal Rugby Union. I'm coming straight from the heart of Calcutta, and any moment now be joined by England Rugby Sevens legend, World Rugby top points scorer, Ben Gollings. And there he is. Ben, welcome. Good evening to you. Good afternoon from me. How are you?
I'm very well, Paul. Very well. And yourself?
Yeah, doing really well. Big rainstorms in Calcutta this afternoon, so I hope the internet kind of stands up. But we'll just go straight into it, if that's all right, Ben.
Absolutely, yeah. I can't say it's raining here, but good to go.
Good to go. Great. So, Ben, I introduced you, top point scorer, still retired a few years ago, but still top point scorer in the World Sevens, absolute legend of the game, in-demand coach around the world. I want to take you back to start with 2010, an event I was involved in. A lot of the people watching will have been involved in. Very good friend of our rugger in Calcutta, Tony. He was one of the managers of that event. 2010 Commonwealth Games in New Delhi. So what's your first memory of that? What comes into your mind when I mention that name?
I think fantastic, really. It was my third Commonwealth Games, and I really enjoyed the whole event. I was disappointed, actually, from an athlete's perspective, that the media kind of downtrodden it a little bit, because actually at the event everything was smooth and it worked really well. And it was you know, I'd been to India before, but to be there at the Commonwealth Games was brilliant. The village was fantastic. The facilities were perfectly adequate for what we needed. The only thing I missed was actually not getting out and about a little bit more. But on the whole, what a great spectacle for us as a team. Bit of disappointment. Semi-final loss to New Zealand. Probably that wasn't the hardest pill to swallow. That was a pretty strong New Zealand team that obviously went on to win gold. For me, the disappointment was not taking away bronze when we had the game all but won and pretty much lost it to South Africa at the death. And you know, when you go to a games, you want to come away with a medal, and so that was a bit disappointing. But the actual experience was brilliant, and I was very happy to be the captain of the team and a part of it in 2010.
Absolutely, captain. So that must have been great, and a lot of expectation really on your team. Two last Commonwealth Games, you won silver, I think, didn't you, in Melbourne? And then you go into Delhi, really strong team. I was looking back at the team, and some of the names in that team were absolutely, you know, fantastic sevens players.
Yeah, and look, I think honestly the team that won in the semi-final, in particular our semi-final, would have been the team that had gone on to win it. And I think if we'd have beaten New Zealand, I think we would have gone on to win it. You know, unfortunately, it wasn't to be, and you know they were a very successful team in the Commonwealth Games. So, but we were confident and believed that we could achieve the right result. So everything went, pretty much according to plan as it can in those circumstances, apart from when you come up against the New Zealand team that were firing on all cylinders. But, it doesn't take anything away from the event. I think from a rugby perspective, being involved in Commonwealth Games is really exciting, and it's a great experience. And to have experienced it in India and in Delhi was enjoyable even more.
Did you watch any India games? Did you manage to see any games?
Yeah, I watched a few. I did, and as a host nation, they did themselves proud. I mean, it's a big ask for a nation like India to jump into a tournament like that with some of the teams, the caliber of teams running around. But they did themselves proud, and I'm sure that they got a lot out of it. Even though they're probably on the receiving end of a few losses.
Yeah, every group was tough, but India had South Africa, Wales, Tonga, so that's like never going to be. It was never going to be an easy match in that group.
No, that's a barrage really of very different rugby styles and some very big men in that pool as well. But yeah, I know. I think it's always good when you're a host nation. You can play in front of your home crowd in an event like that.
And just sorry to say, but absolutely everybody was delighted that New Zealand won, and that was all the organisers, apart from me, probably I was probably the only person who was like disappointed that England hadn't gone to the final, but all the guys who had been helping with the organisation, and nearly everybody that was directly involved was a rugby player. So we must have had 20, 30, 40 young rugby players who were there, young and old actually, who were managing the teams and managing the liaison, supporting the referees. And absolutely everybody, I'm sorry, wanted New Zealand to win, and just to obviously watch the haka at the end, as is the tradition of the New Zealand Sevens team.
Well, look, I think, it goes without saying they're often favourites wherever you play in a rugby perspective. And, rightly so, considering they'd already lost 3 Commonwealth Games prior. So, it was, if any other team going to win it, it'd have probably got my vote as well, particularly as we lost them in the semi-final. But they do draw a crowd. They play a good style of rugby, and they're great ambassadors for the game. And also outside of that, they're a very well-known rugby team, aren't they? So, it's one of those things.
It's really good that you had a good time there. There was controversies and things surrounding it, but it was, for those of us who were part of it, was absolutely an amazing spectacle and really exciting to be part of it. So it's glad that you had some good memories, as well as a 4th place, which is always the toughest loss, isn't it? Always the toughest loss.
Yeah, to have come away with a medal or with a bronze, which I think we were. You can never say deserve. I think we were very capable of, and I'll be honest with you, we did all but throw away that game against South Africa. But the actual facilities, the event, and I'd say the only other big memory was being incredibly hot in the outfit we had for the opening ceremony, which took a while for us to get through. But actually, once we were out in the stadium, and those things are once in a lifetime type experiences, and so it soon disappeared with how hot and sweaty we had been for about 2 hours prior. But yeah, it's all. I see that as all part of those times. So, yeah, I don't really have that bad a word to say about it, to be honest with you.
Great, that's really good to hear. It's really good to hear. Yeah, opening ceremony was one of the highlights, certainly for all of us involved. I mean, I didn't get to go to it, but on the TV, and they really did an amazing job with that.
They did. I think again, for the time they had and the spectacle they put on, it was great.
Good to hear. Very good to hear. So I'm going to go straight into a kind of viewer's question, a question that I was sent. It's quite a nice little testing, not a testing question, but from one of our Jungle Crows players. Actually, that's the team I'm part of, Zafar. And his question was, which player's ability would you have wanted in yourself? And it can be an old player, kind of long gone player, or a new player. And there's the skills in like running, tackling, and passing. So if you could take one player and have his running ability, who would that be, Ben?
I think for me it would probably be someone like Jonny, right?
Sorry, you're
I'm
not
not a
allowed to
mountain
laugh.
guy.
So his little clause at the bottom of his at the
Oh,
bottom of his question did actually say, no, Jonah, no.
no, can't be Jonah. Okay.
Well, that's too easy. You just give me three
Well,
Jonah.
too easy. No, okay. Well, God, who else would I've running capabilities? Probably the likes of a Christian Cullen. Again, very different. He wasn't a big guy, not much myself, but his pace and his ability to move and beat players was fantastic. Yeah. And he showed that both in 7s and 15s. So from a running ability, definitely, yeah, Christian Cullen.
I mean, he had those like mazy, amazing runs, huh?
Oh yeah, could spot a gap, and then he had the pace and he had another gear. You thought maybe someone was going to catch him, but bang, off he goes again. And he was brilliant at reading space and hitting onto the ball, and it was a joy to watch back then.
Nice. So the youngsters out there need to Google Christian Cullen. So in tackling, whose tackling skill would you take?
Tackling skill, gosh. Well, I once played against Tuingamala on the wing, who, again, I'm going back away, so people may not remember Inga the winger, but my word, that guy could tackle.
Yeah.
There's one thing you certainly didn't want to be on. It was a blind side of Tuingamala, because the likelihood is you wouldn't have got back up. And I guess it stands in memory because I did. I was, whether you'd say fortunate enough or not, I wouldn't know, but I was fortunate enough to play against him in a cup final at one point. It was a bit like David and Goliath, but if you go back through the archives, that guy made some pretty impressive tackles.
Great, lovely. We had Apollo Perellini on the show last week, so the Terminator. So he'd be in the same kind of category as Inga the winger. So passing, whose passing would you have most admired and have like? I mean, you were that. I guess that would be one of the things that you were absolutely known as. Although I did watch the 2000. Was it the London Sevens final or quarter final in 2009 the other day, and it was anyway that left a bit to be desired. But so passing skills, whose passing skills would you snap?
You're not a howler every so often. Jonny Wilkinson was a pretty outstanding passer of the ball. I mean, his ability to put it on the spot with very limited space and movement was quite impressive, and it came at you like a bullet as well. So, the likes of Jonny would have been one of them. His passing skills, and probably another one was like a Carlos Spencer, subtle different. I think just in terms of his all-round ball skills and trickery, you put the two of them together, you'd have quite a nice little mix there.
Did Jonny Wilkinson ever play sevens? I can't think if he did, but did he ever have have you ever seen him having a go?
No. Not. Italy. I think he may have played in the Middlesex Sevens way back when it was the Middlesex Sevens, and we used to play Premiership clubs together. But certainly, he was. I mean, he went straight into the 15s with England, so he wasn't there. And then in the sevens capacity, but I dare say he would have made quite a useful sevens.
He'd been good, yeah, of course, and great.
He probably wouldn't have been a 10. He probably would have
and getting into the thick of things.
Yeah, I'd have probably played him as a hooker in sevens.
Yeah, nice. Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, absolutely. And it's telling me my internet connection is unstable, but we're going to press on. If you don't hear me or I don't hear you, then we just kind of make stuff up. So there's follow up. There's kind of follow up to that is. And this has been very big on Twitter over the last week. I don't know if you follow Twitter or you look at it, but there's this big question about if you were to make a team from a single player. So this is like the Twitter thing is about 15s, but let's talk about sevens. If you were to make a team from a single player, again, it can't be Jonah Lomu. So if there was a single player that was going to play in every position, who would that player be?
And we're talking sevens now.
Sevens, I'm going to force you to think about sevens. And a sevens player, you can't have some.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, I think it would either be an Eric Rush or a Waisali
yeah.
Serebri, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Eric Rush maybe had to cover slightly more positions
Yeah.
than Wise, but yeah, you know, I mean, Eric's his ball skills were second to none. His fitness levels were, you know, they set the benchmark for sevens very early on. His running skills, you know, jump, catch. I think you if you had 7 Eric Rushes on the field, you'd struggle to beat that team.
Legend
Probably,
of Hong Kong, of course.
yes, yeah, and you know, I managed to catch a number of years playing against him, which was an honour.
Yeah, what a star! What a star! What an absolute star! Okay, so there's some really tricky questions over. So we're going to go into a kind of quick fire round. So you don't need to, you're not supposed to think about these answers, but let's see how you get on. So Ben, where do you call home at the moment?
Gold Coast, Australia.
Gold Coast, Australia. Wow. And okay, I know the answer to this question, but what were you doing this morning?
I was firstly this morning. I was out getting thrown around in the waves with my one of my sons, who makes surfing look very easy, and I make it look very hard.
Surfing on the Gold Coast. That's tremendous, huh? Wow.
Avoiding sharks.
Oh, let's not think about the sharks. So next question: beach or mountains for a holiday?
All mountains for me.
Mountains. Then you live on the Gold Coast. What's that all about?
Yeah, well, we're fortunate actually. We've got quite nice. I wouldn't say massive mountains, but hills in what they call the hinterland. But I'm a big mountain person. I love the mountains.
Right. Nice. So you have to tell us what your favourite curry is, if you like curry.
I do. Yeah. Well, I mean, hot curry, vindaloo.
We don't. That's very British.
Well, that's the up one. Yeah. No. What would a favourite curry be? I don't know.
Hot.
So I'll be honest. All of them. Having actually not liked very spicy food for a while, when I lived in Sri Lanka and coached there, I learned that there was no such thing as a mild, cold curry or spice. It was all just freaking hot. So my taste buds changed, and I became a lover of spicy food. So
yeah,
throw anything at me, I'm happy with the curry.
Brilliant. So this should be an easy one for you. 7s or 15s?
I'll say 7s, but I loved my time playing 15s as well. I think as a player, I was very fortunate. I got to do both for my whole career, and I think I enjoy the balance between the two, if that makes sense.
I guess players now, they if they commit to 7s, you know, international 7s, they have to sort of fully commit to it, don't they? They can't sort of have a 15s. I mean, they can go back to 15s, but you can't really do both. It's very difficult, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and you know, I think with obviously all with the kind of intensity of the World Series now and player welfare and all the rest of it, there's kind of nuances there, but make it a bit harder for me. Honestly, I really enjoyed you know, slogging it out in the English Premiership for 3 or 4 games, and then getting a 2-week break in an exotic location to run around on a 7s field. And it used to kind of freshen me out, give us a bounce back. And, you know, again, as a smaller guy, it was a level playing field. I thrived out there. But then I'd come back and feel renewed and actually really enjoy my 15s. Both of them, I enjoyed the switch between the tactics. So, you know, and I dare say I think 15s helped me a lot because it made you robust, right? And in 7s, you need to be robust to be able to get through 6 games for a weekend, 2 weekends in a row. So I think it definitely helped in that regard.
Great. So you played 15s. I think did you have 2 or 3 seasons at Harlequins?
Yeah, a bit longer actually. 3 or 4 seasons at Harlequins, then Newcastle, and then Worcester.
How was that? Because there's a club in Calcutta, Future
And then
Hope,
I went
who
on
have
the
a
road in
connection with
Australia, New
Harlequins.
Zealand, Japan. Yeah, look, I think Harlequins is a fantastic club, and I got really good memories of playing at Harlequins. And for me, it was like my home club. Because living in Dorset, I was in between kind of the Bath, Gloucester area and London. So it was my home club. And I think, they've done a great job of growing rugby around the world as well, using their brand to support the game. So, and I think they continue to do it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, we've been really lucky. Had a couple of Harlequins boys out coaching and working with some of the kids and the teams in Calcutta. And it gives everybody a real boost when you get a Premiership player turns up and is giving you tips and encouraging the youngsters in their game. It's really nice.
Yeah, I think likewise, a great opportunity for that player to be able to be out there and experiencing, the other side of rugby, but how much of an impact you can have, not just on the field but off the field.
Brilliant. Okay, so what I'd like to do is now sort of turn the conversation a little bit towards your kind of coaching. So you're kind of probably, today best known as obviously as a legend of the game, but also now you're coaching around the world. I know that. So do you have a coaching style or a philosophy that you kind of bring to your coaching?
Yeah, definitely. For me, I think it stems from the way I see the game and how I like to play it as a player. And that it's not a kind of just wingit.com style of rugby. It's actually an astute decision making game of rugby whereby you empower the players to be able to feel confident about making decisions. So it's not too predetermined or pre-programmed, and you work in an environment that drives those skill sets, the vision, the support play, the ability to understand each other. And for me, I'm a big believer in it, and it's the type of coaching I enjoy.
So who would you say have been your biggest influences as coaches that you've worked with or that you've observed?
I think the beauty of my rugby career is I did get to experience kind of a global feel, and so obviously I played in quite a number of different countries, and I really enjoyed my time in New Zealand, and we had Robbie Deans coaching, and to see how someone like of his caliber coached, it left a big imprint on myself. Some of the coaches I had in Australia, I mean, name-wise, people would know them so much, but it was a very different flavour. As well as in when I was playing at Newcastle, Andrew Blades was a fantastic coach as well, and Joe Lydon when I was with the England Sevens.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I think with a coach, it's as much about how they manage. Well, it's not. It's all about how they manage people as much as how they coach on the field, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And the balance between the two is absolutely imperative. And so, yeah, I got a great kind of flavour and understanding from that regard.
We had Mike Friday in India last year, and he coached our junior women's team, who were going to play in an Olympic kind of a pre-Olympic qualifier in Dubai, and Mike came over to coach them in Mumbai, and then they went over and played and met all the sort of USA Sevens players in Dubai when they played in their little tournament. And he said some really nice things about the players, and the kids came back absolutely full of it that they'd worked with him, and then got the chance to meet all these kind of stars of USA Sevens. So you would have had Mike Friday. Would you have been coached by Mike Friday back in the start of your England career?
Yeah, I mean, look, Mike and I go a long way back. We were actually we were roommates.
Oh,
on age, and he was 9 and I was 10, and then it progressed from there really. And yeah, Mike coached us in some of our really strong years, to be honest, with the England team. And he's a good operator, Mike. He's how would I explain Mike? And I think he's probably changed. I think what a lot of people do is as well, you have to adapt your coaching style as you move forward, and I think that transition is quite from through to when you've been coaching for a number of years. And Mike wears his heart on his sleeve, and he strives to get the best out of people. And he was a great coach, and he's obviously gone on and done some fantastic things now with the US team. He's really kind of nurtured that talent and brought them together.
So and then if you think of the Commonwealth Games, you had Ben Ryan as your coach at that tournament. How was that? Very different, I'd say. Very different. I don't know either of them, but I think they're very different characters, aren't they?
They are, yeah, very, very, very different. And it's one of the things as a player, I think it's something that needs to be taught to players, is that you've got to be able to adapt to coaches, because you're never going to have just one coach in your whole playing career. And it's important you have that adaptability as well. But Ben at the time was very different to Mike. Some of the positive sides around where Ben was coaching is he allowed us as some of the senior players to really drive the game and control the game. And I think that's an thing from coaching. If you want to install that in your senior players, because ultimately they're the ones who are making the decisions and playing the game on the field. You can't play it for them. So, look, it's very different coaching styles, and we were successful under Ben. I didn't play in Ben's very early stages with England, but my last year, we probably should have won the World Series that year.
When would that be? What year would that be? That'd be,
I think it was like 11, 12 or something.
I mean,
I get confused.
I've just been looking at some of the highlights of the games, before me chatting to you today. And that team of kind of 2010, 11, 12 was incredibly stronger. Some, the real kind of household names that probably you don't have as many household names in the sevens these days, of England sevens.
No, I mean, that was, I think, really at that period whereby obviously sevens was really making that move towards that full-time environment. Obviously, we just had the announcement of the Olympics, so that gave a big boost towards teams wanting to, put more emphasis on full-time players and programs with opportunities of gold medals available. And so I think that did change the style of play. I mean, if you look back through the early 2000s as well, with us as an England team, the majority of those players were all playing English Premiership and or had got capped by England full team. So it had changed. But that last year that I was involved in, ultimately really blew it in our London tournament when we bombed out. We didn't even have to win it. We just had to place really to put ourselves into going into the last tournament and coming away with a World Series, which is something England.
Have England won the World Series?
Done.
I don't think they have. No, they haven't.
It wasn't to be, unfortunately. But no, we haven't. But we've certainly when I was playing, I know we not to say it's all me. I just know that we won most of our comps, if that makes sense. We got most of the wins came from that era. I'm not sure how many they've knocked off lately, but I don't know as many as that one. Certainly, obviously the big one, the Hong Kong, they've not done so far, which would be nice to see another England team do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just talking about your own kind of coaching experience, I suppose one of the highlights that's interesting to me and the sort of folks around India is that you coached Sri Lanka and had a good stint like working in Sri Lanka. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Some of the highs and some of the some of the challenges.
No. Look, I think we can be honest. Like my experience there was fantastic, and it was an experience. Like I knew not much about Sri Lanka before going there, and Phil Greening had kind of said, "Hey, would you come and do it?" Because he was getting posted elsewhere, and they're such friendly, welcoming people. I actually had no idea about the kind of history of rugby in Sri Lanka until I got there and realised it. I think you just go straight to cricket, right? But not at all. And so I was blown away. And they'd not long come out of obviously that long-term war, which obviously changes people, and you had to be understanding of that. And there was a few, I guess, political issues that, if we're to talk about some of the challenges, they were some of the challenges we went through as a head coach. But I think quite a bit, and they were able to respect me enough. And I think the players themselves, they absorbed the information. Great group of players. Really nice to coach, and it was enjoyable to see them kind of pick up some of their first silverware they'd ever won. And I think they rugby differently from that time. And I'd like to say that we kind of started something back then that they've carried on, and they're quite a strength. And we played a style of game that played to their strengths, which is they're not big people, but they're smart and they're very quick and they're quick-footed. And so it was about actually, the beauty of sevens is you don't have to make it physical if you don't want to. You can be smart about the way you play, and they did. And during that time, we used to give some of the bigger nations, like the likes of Hong Kong, a real run for the actually. I think we didn't quite knock them over, but we got very close. So I love my experience, and I've got some really fond memories, especially of the buses waking me up every morning.
I think Sri Lankan sevens rugby is absolutely fantastic. I've sort of watched them over the years, and I think that their sort of skills and their sort of, I love their sort of have this kind of support play. They play very quickly. Probably sometimes as a coach, it's very frustrating because they'll just try everything. But it's great. It's really fun to watch them play, and especially when they knock off some big team.
They do, and they do have it in them to be the real kind of underdog upsetters and upset the big guns, and they've proved that. And they do. They go out and they throw themselves about. They're fearless in that regard, and they do come up against some big opposition. I mean, the other side as well is they're fantastic on and off the field. And one memory of them was in Mumbai, in the Mumbai Sevens. Yes. After the tournament, we had the after-match function, and they said, "Coach, can we have a drink?" I said, "Yeah, look, of course. Look, just keep it real. We, but you've done fantastically well. They did brilliantly in that tournament." I said, "It's always good to celebrate success." And I came down a little while later, and I think they were running the DJ, running the dance, and I just thought that they were just happy with life, And I absolutely loved it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic to see. Again, an experience I hadn't had before.
You see, you don't remember. I was a fellow coach in that tournament.
I think I do. Yeah, I do remember.
I had to coach Afghanistan.
That's yeah.
At 8:00 the night before, I was asked if I was free.
I do remember that. Because you guys were sat in the right next door to us in the players' quarters at the ground.
Yeah. But, so that was my greatest moment. That was my greatest moment, Ben.
Hey, international coach, can't knock it. That's a tick box there. It can't be taken away from you.
I went to the meeting and they said, "What colour are you playing in?" And I've got no idea.
Who's your starting lineup? Don't know. All good. I mean, again, that's the beauty of sevens, right? I think it's always nice how it throws something new up at you. Constantly.
So you're coaching Sri Lanka. You've coached lots of teams. So you've got smaller guys. This is interesting for guys that I work with, coach with, and so team that's developing and perhaps has physically smaller guys physical boys and girls actually, because we have India has an amazing sort of women's girls sevens program, really successful, more in a way more successful than the men. So what's your kind of bits of advice for how a team should set itself up? What would be your coaching points to get that small team over, to get that little bit more improved performance?
Well, I think first and foremost, everyone marks sevens as being an incredibly physical game. It is, but it depends on how physical you want to make it. And you don't have to take contact unnecessarily. And I think learning how to be smart in that area would benefit every team. But if you're a smaller team, use it to your advantage. If it means to say, always look to work within the spaces and make people tackle you as opposed to have that real confrontational contact. And in that regard, then play quick like ball. Ideally, though, outside of that, move the ball around. Let the ball do the work, and then let the footwork of the smaller players find that space or that mismatch, and off you go. And then once you've gone, that's where you've got to turn the screw and make sure you've got the support there and move it off. And you can really play to your strengths. If you're passing skills, obviously you've got to have very accurate ball handling skills. It does help, and then confident with that, the confidence to beat people one-on-one. Utilizing all those skill sets, I think, are very advantageous for people that are small. And I classify myself in that really. I'm not a big guy in regards to the international rugby scene, but I think it's how you use your size and be smart with it. There's a lot of brain versus brawn, and if you look at a lot of the Waisali Serevi, for instance, look at the qualities he had and the ability he had of making some of the biggest rugby players in the world look very foolish at times. So I definitely think those are areas that as a smaller team you can work on and use to your advantage. As well as the other side is probably being, get yourselves incredibly fit so that you can play a game that will tire opposition out.
So for advice to players, it's skills, fitness.
Yeah, skills, fitness, vision, and keep the ball alive.
Yeah.
Pick your moments, and if you've got to take contact, take it in a way that is you're going to, and it's not the big head-on collisions. It's the beating someone who just manages to tackle you type contact, where they're stretching to tackle you. Make them tackle you, not run into them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So we're going to sort of finish in a moment. So I'd just like to finish by asking you what would be your best kind of sevens moment as a player or as a coach? What's the absolute highlight? If you look back and you think, well, that was fantastic. Or
I think one of the big ones for me was winning Hong Kong in 2006.
Wow.
And I was fortunate enough to be there at the right place at the right time to score the try that equaled the score, and then I kicked the conversion to win it right after the clock. And I think it was made a bit sweeter because the year before in the World Cup, I missed the kick that eventually let Fiji go on and take the semi-final win. So it was bittersweet in that regard. But I think as an English person, when you win in Hong Kong and you see the crowd and the support you have and fireworks go off and the South Stand go nuts, it's a very memorable, very, very memorable occasion, and it does stand out to me.
And you don't have to buy a drink for a couple of days after that, I bet.
No, you can stay in your kit as well. So you need to get changed.
That's for another interview. That's for another.
Just blend in.
Just mixing with the South Stand. Get in there.
Yeah, I've never done it actually. I've never done it. I'm quite happy to watch from afar.
Yeah, I think it's best. It's best to just watch them. Takes a more stamina than I've certainly got. So that would be your favorite venue, Hong Kong.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's the kind of, it is it's not the main event, but it's certainly the showcase for sevens, and it just works. You know, it's an incredible stadium that kind of sits right on top of you, and it's a fantastic crowd that they just love being there, and they love the rugby, they love the social. But it's not to say that others weren't. You know, I think Wellington in its day when I was around again was different, but it was a fantastic tournament to play in. And then Dubai as well. You know, Dubai in the middle of a desert, the crowds they get, and the atmosphere that's created is not, you can't really replicate it or compare it to Hong Kong. They're both within their own rights fantastic tournaments.
Okay, Ben, so thanks very much for taking the time. I know it's evening in Brisbane and you're probably waiting for your dinner. So thanks very much for taking the time to chat with us in Bengal Rugby. We've got a lot of really enthusiastic rugby supporters that follow you in India, Ben. I know a lot of our youngsters, they're absolutely, you're seen as being an absolute legend to them. So it's really nice that you've made the time to chat with us for a little while today. So thanks ever so much. And when are you coming?
Yeah, well, no, I was going to say, Paul. So look, thank you for the opportunity. I think it's great that we can do this at this time. And yeah, definitely when everything starts to change, I would love to come over and help out at some point. It'd be an honour.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Ben.
No worries. Thank you.